The Vision of Hell by St. John Bosco. Saint John Bosco 1816–1888, founder of the Salesian order, was an Italian priest who devoted his life to educating boys. He was a miracle worker, healer, tireless laborer, and spiritual father to poor boys. Throughout his life, he had many profound mystical dreams that helped guide his steps, some of which also had prophetic significance for the future of the Church. What follows is one of those dreams, which he recounted to his boys on Sunday, May 3, 1868. As we will see at the end, this dream was not simply a product of his imagination, but a vision of reality, a grace given to him by God so that we might better understand the last things and the reality of hell. I was so tired, however, that I immediately fell asleep. The same person I had seen the previous night instantly appeared at the side of my bed. Don Bosco often referred to him as the man with the cap. "Get up and follow me," he said. We entered a wide, beautiful road, perfectly paved. The road of sinners smooth, without stones, and at its end, the abyss of hell. Sirach 21:10. At first glance, the road seemed even and comfortable. I stepped onto it without the slightest suspicion, but very soon I noticed that it inclined downward almost imperceptibly. As we descended along its flower-covered sides, full of roses, I realized that many boys from the oratory, as well as others unknown to me, were following behind. Suddenly, I found myself among them. Watching them, I saw that one by one, some of them fell to the ground. Some invisible force, however, dragged them further and pulled them into a chasm like a gaping furnace. "Why are these boys falling?" I asked my companion. "Look more closely," he replied. I did as he said. Around us, I saw traps. Some were on the ground itself, others at eye level, all perfectly camouflaged. The boys, unaware of the danger, were caught in the snares. They stumbled over them and fell to the ground in confusion, tumbling through the air with arms and legs flailing. If they sometimes managed to get back on their feet, some invisible force dragged them toward the abyss. Some snares tightened around their heads, others around their necks, arms, or legs. In every case, sooner or later, they collapsed to the ground. The snares hidden close to the ground were especially hard to notice, made of delicate, thin threads like spiderwebs. They seemed very fragile and harmless. To my surprise, every boy who got caught in one of them fell down. Seeing my astonishment, the guide said, "Do you know what this is?" "A kind of fiber woven from nets," I replied. "Nothingness," he said. "Simply human respect." Seeing so many boys caught in the snares, I asked, "Why have so many let themselves get entangled? Who is knocking them to the ground?" "Come closer and you'll see," he told me. I lifted one of the traps and pulled hard. I felt strong resistance. I began to struggle with it more forcefully, and because I hadn't held the thread properly taut, I don't know when I got caught in the snare myself. I fell and felt myself being dragged downward. I didn't resist much, and soon I found myself at the entrance of a vast and terrifying abyss. I kept struggling, and after a moment, an enormous and hideous monster appeared, clutching a rope in its claws, a rope to which all the snares were attached. It was he who constantly dragged downward all those caught in the traps. I returned to my guide. "Now you know who it is," he said to me. "Yes, I know perfectly well. It is none other than Satan himself." Upon closer inspection of the snares, I saw that each one bore an inscription: pride, disobedience, envy, impurity, theft, gluttony, laziness, anger, and more. I looked around to see which sin most often ensnared the boys. It turned out that the most dangerous were impurity, disobedience, and pride. All three were closely linked. Other snares also caused great harm and destruction, but the greatest damage came from the first two. As I observed everything more carefully, I saw that many boys were running faster than the others. Why are they in such a hurry? I asked. They've fallen into the snare of human respect. I looked around even more closely and noticed that among the snares there were scattered knives. Some providential hand had placed them there, and through them, one could free oneself. Some, quite large, symbolized meditation, and they easily destroyed the snares of pride. Others, slightly smaller, represented spiritual reading. Two special swords symbolized devotion to the Blessed Sacrament, especially frequent Holy Communion, and devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. A hammer stood for Holy Confession. On several smaller knives were inscriptions, devotion to Saint Joseph, Saint Aloysius, and other saints. With the help of these means, many boys with goodwill were able to free themselves from humiliating bondage. The gates of hell. We moved on. The road became so steep and broken that it was nearly impossible to stand upright. Then, at the very bottom of the abyss, at the entrance to a dark valley, a large structure appeared before our eyes. Its massive doors, tightly shut, stood directly opposite the road. When I finally reached the bottom, I was overcome by the suffocating heat. Thick, greenish smoke, alternating with flashes of red light, rose from the massive walls, which loomed ominously like the tallest mountains. "Where are we? What is this place?" I asked my guide. "Read the inscription on the doorway, and you'll know." I then saw the following words, "The place where there is no salvation." I now understood we were at the gates of hell. My guide led me around that dreadful place. From time to time, at various intervals, doors of bronze appeared like the first ones, and on each was an inscription with words such as, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels." Matthew 25:41. Every tree that does not bear good fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire. Matthew 7:19. I wanted to write them down in my notebook, but my guide stopped me. "There is no need. You already have all of this in the Holy Scriptures. Some of these verses even adorn your corridors." I longed to return to the oratory. I even tried to go back. Suddenly, my guide turned to me. Nervous and surprised, he signaled for me to step aside. "Look," he said. Terrified, I saw someone in the distance tumbling down the path at terrifying speed. As he came closer, I was able to recognize him. It was one of my boys. His hair stood on end or flew wildly in the wind. His arms flailed as if he were trying to swim and keep himself from sinking. He tried to stop but couldn't. Crashing against the stones, he fell faster and faster. Moments later, he hit the bottom violently, tumbling to the very depths of the ravine, and struck the bronze gate with great force, as if it were the only shelter in his desperate flight. As the boy struck the gate, it immediately opened with a heavy creak. Probably 1,000 inner doors swung open as if pushed by some invisible and incomprehensible force, like a violent and unstoppable whirlwind. Amidst a deafening crash, the bronze doors opened one after another in rapid succession, though spaced out at noticeable intervals. Far within, I saw something resembling a furnace mouth spitting out fiery balls, right at the moment the boy was swallowed inside. And just as quickly as they had opened, the doors slammed shut again with a thunderous bang. Once more, I tried to write down the name of the unfortunate boy, but again my guide would not allow it. "Wait," he commanded, "and watch." 3 other boys of mine, petrified with terror, their arms outstretched, came tumbling down one after another like enormous boulders. I noticed that their bodies also struck the main gate. In the blink of an eye, it opened and again the thousand inner doors. The endless corridor swallowed the three boys with a fading echo. Then the doors slammed shut again. In the meantime, more boys kept falling down behind them. Each had written on his forehead the name of the sin he had committed. Again the doors opened with a thunderclap and closed with a hollow boom. A dead silence fell. The causes of damnation. Bad company, bad books, and sinful habits, my guide explained to me, are the most common causes of eternal rejection. The traps I had seen earlier truly led the boys to ruin. At the sight of so many heading to destruction, I cried out in despair, if so many of our boys end up like this, then our efforts are in vain. How can we prevent these tragedies? It is the state they are in now, my guide replied. If they were to die right now, they would undoubtedly go there. Then please, allow me to write down their names so that I can warn them and guide them back onto the path to heaven. Do you really believe any of them will change after your warning? Perhaps it may make an impression on a few, but they will soon forget, saying, it was just a dream. And they will become even worse. Others, convinced you did not identify them, will go to the sacrament of penance, but without true devotion, simply out of habit. Still others will go to confession out of fear of hell, but they will not abandon their sins. Then is there no hope for these poor souls? Please, tell me what I can do for them. They have superiors, let them obey them. They have rules, let them follow them. They have the holy sacraments, let them receive them. At that moment, another group of boys came crashing down with force, and the doors immediately opened. Now come with me, said my guide, and pulling me along, he led me through the gate into a corridor, at the end of which stood a watchtower completely enclosed with a giant, crystal clear window. As soon as I stepped onto the threshold of the tower, an indescribable fear paralyzed me. I dared not take another step. Far above me, I saw something that resembled an enormous cavern. It gradually disappeared into a chasm that sank deeper and deeper into the very bowels of the mountains. The mountains were burning, but with a fire unlike any we know, not flickering flames, but a terrible, steady heat. The entire cave and everything in it, the walls, the ceiling, the ground, the metal, the stones, the wood, and the coal, was glowing white hot, radiating heat at unimaginable temperatures. This fire did not consume, but incinerated. I cannot find words to describe the horror of that abyss. For Tophet has long been prepared, indeed, for the king it is made ready. Its fire pit has been made deep and wide, with an abundance of fire and wood. The breath of the Lord, like a stream of burning sulfur, sets it ablaze. Isaiah 30:33. A whirlwind of shocking thoughts overwhelmed me, for I saw a boy crash against the gate. He let out a terrifying scream, like someone who had fallen into a vat of molten metal. Then he rolled into the center of the cavern. There, he immediately became motionless and remained so, glowing with the heat of the fire. Only the echo of his dreadful cry lingered on. Stunned by everything, I looked closer for a moment. It seemed to me that it was one of the boys from the oratory. Is that so? And so I asked my guide. Yes, he replied. Why has he become so motionless? Why has he turned white hot? You only wanted to see, he answered. Let that be enough for you. Everyone will be salted with fire. Mark 9:49. More terrified than ever, I asked my guide, did these boys know where they were going as they fell into that abyss? There is no doubt. They were warned so many times. Yet they deliberately chose this path. They felt no disgust for sin, nor did they fight against it. Worse, they continually despised and rejected God's mercy, which called them to repentance. In doing so, they provoked divine justice, which now drives them, surrounds them, and compels them onward until they reach this place.